Ana bapasibi bachichanga musomero ta ebesisole n'abasomo lero kinyanga kino abana bose balekana banjira mu class ya kuranga bosi bamarira mu class ya munanalala bacha mu class ya tisabosi barura mu class ya 12 benjira mu bisomo bya munderero sisomero sefya Kisii siyewe nafasi ya kuranga okwama mu busomi buno kunyola mu profesa kunyola mu daktari kunyola mu mwekesi karibu mke si bwana sisi tumanye busomi embotokelela yefu ya Kenya engenya nokende njei kimirongoro chingulu nebimelwa byose binyola kana mukarumu kwikoya kumubana kisange chimbofu mukenya enje simba emboko enjofu efu engwe kisange kino cyose kinyola kana mumbotokelela ya kisange ambose lugulwekon embotokele ya murobi lugulwa Kenya lugulwa egoni abene balugulwa masaba karibu mukenya kwa isimu mabubali nabulindi bwembotokelela karibu mukenya karibu Kisii karibu munderero ya Kisii
umetuandalia kule mbinguni, mahali pema mji wa raha. Kule mbinguni, Yesu umetuandalia kule mbinguni, mahali pema mji wa raha. Kule mbinguni kuna mambo uyayeko, kule mbinguni kuna mambo uyaye ndugu yangu, tuende mbinguni kuna mambo ndugu yangu, tuende mbinguni kuna mambo. Oh, ni rangi gani tutakuwa kule mbinguni? Ni rangi gani? Weupe ama weusi? Ni rangi gani tutakuwa kule mbinguni? Weupe ama weusi? Kule mbinguni ni rangi gani? Uyayekwa tewa msifu Mungu Baba, uyayekwa imba sana kwa Mungu Baba, uyaye ndugu yangu, tuende mbinguni kuna mambo ndugu yangu, tuende mbinguni kuna mambo. Waafrika watakuwepo kule mbinguni, Waarabu watakuwepo kule mbinguni, na Wahindi watakuwepo kule mbinguni, na Wazungu watakuwepo kule mbinguni, Waafrika watakuwepo kule mbinguni, Waarabu watakuwepo kule mbinguni, na Wahindi watakuwepo kule mbinguni, na Wazungu watakuwepo kule mbinguni. Oh, kule mbinguni hakuna rangi uyayewo, tewa msifu Mungu Baba, uyayewa imba sana kwa Mungu Baba, uyaye ndugu yangu, tuende mbinguni kuna mambo ndugu yangu, tuende mbinguni kuna mambo. Kule mbinguni jina lako limeandikwa, jina lako limeandikwa. Kule mbinguni tutaitwaje? Uyayeko. Kule mbinguni tutaitwaje? Uyaye na majina nzuri, ni safi tena tamu. Mambo, mambo, mbinguni kuna mambo. Ndugu yangu, tuende mbinguni kuna mambo. Ndugu yangu, tuende mbinguni kuna mambo.
Bluetooth mode. The Bluetooth device is connected successfully.
Jamii yote kina mama tusemezane, walio ng'ambo ile mambo ile termino de semezane.
Thank you, Juan.
Good morning. Thank God that this fire has brought us at this another day. So I'm hoping all of us were loved and rested. We start the day. So before we start, I think let us give thanks to God and then we go to the next presenter. Nani yule atatuombea? Daktari Sini atuombea. Dr. Yantika, pray for us. Huh? Stand up, let's pray.
We pray the Lord your hand. Thank you for the weather, for all that we have been doing. Right now, I feel the weather to be with us. We pray the Lord for our family.
A few announcements. We did the first needed the speaker, Princess, giving us the keynote address, we shall move to the breakout rooms. We have got 3 breakout rooms today. Okay, so we go for tea breakfast and then we move to the breakout rooms. We'll have one room C will remain here, and then A and B will go where they were yesterday. So room C, this room C and B will be that side. This morning we are having a virtual presentation from our keynote speaker. Who is Professor Sanya from Nigeria. After his speech, we'll have a recap from Professor Were. Then after that, we'll have tea break. Then after the tea break, we'll go to our group. And I'm asking the chair of each session, please to ensure that we are there to time today so that we finish early. So with that, I want to welcome Professor Sanya to give us his keynote address. Prof, welcome.
Good morning. Yes, I enjoy your entertainment. Very interesting. All protocols observed. Let me start by appreciating the organizer of this conference, particularly the Dean of the School of Arts and Social Sciences, Dr. Margaret Barasa, who find me worthy and the authority.
Prof, just hold on a bit.
Hello.
And go to Twitter, go to WhatsApp. Instagram or all the social media.
Prof,
Hello.
Prof, could you try speaking?
Can I go on? Can I go on? Hello.
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Good morning. I enjoyed the entertainment. My presentation is on the theme, that is heritage and sustainable development goals in Africa. All protocols observed. Introduction. Let me start by appreciating the organizers of this conference, particularly the Dean of the School of Arts and Social Sciences, Dr. Margaret Barasa, who find me worthy, and the authorities of Kisii, University, Kenya, for inviting me to give a keynote address at this August gathering. I will never forget your friends.
Prof, could you just your camera, your laptop screen, please, so that we can be able to see you. Half of it is the top.
Okay. Let me take everyone back.
I don't know if it's a laptop you're using or an iPad. Huh?
Oh, I'm okay now. Are you okay now? Can you hear me now? I want to be better.
If it's a laptop, just bend the laptop forward. The laptop
I'm taking my
screen
laptop
forward,
away. I'm taking this away.
so that we can be able to see you.
Okay, I'll remove my laptop. I don't see me now. I don't see me now.
We can only see the top half of your head.
Okay. This one come?
Continue like that.
Like this?
Continue like that.
Like this?
That headroom between your head and the top of the screen, we want it as minimized as possible. So if
like
you can, try and center it.
Like this, Inga?
Okay, you can continue.
Okay. Let me start by appreciating the organizers of the conference, particularly the Dean of the School of Arts and Social Sciences, Dr. Margaret Barasa, who find me worthy, and the authorities of Kisii University in Kenya for inviting me to give a keynote address at this August gathering. I will not forget your friendship at this important time. The issues of sustained development is paramount to Africa's ancestors, posterity, and prosperity. I am pleased to inform you that the team fits into the unique challenge faced by African development at this critical time of climate change and economic competitions among community of nations to retain a significant portion of culture on sustainable growth and development. The message is unlocking the potentials of relics for development across all Africa is what this conference is about. The choice of the organizers to this conference is not far-fetched, and it is therefore significant in the enormous potential of Africa in social cohesion, creativity, and natural resources. If properly managed, Africa has the capability to become a global powerhouse through tourism and indigenous industrial development. Heritage of culture is a made-up element to attaining achievable growth and development in Africa and to resolve the challenges of the relevance of culture in African society due to the promotion of Western culture and preservation of their heritage, in spite of devastating impacts on Africa to meet up with the goal 5 of African Union Agenda in 2063 among the Committee of Nations. Africa, development and challenges. The central focus of my speech is how sustainable development goals may play out for Africa, an element of interfacing of the Sustainable Development Goals and Africa Agenda 2063. What I observe from discourse of sustainable development growth of Africa as a blueprint for a more sustainable development in the future, were the good and bad in the Sustainable Development Goals in terms of the place of Africa and desire to prioritize African culture and heritage. Counting on the neglect of the usefulness of preservation of historical artifacts for Africa's growth and human development, it is important to mention that Africa is mainly significant to the world, but not relevant in taking decisions, including African Union agendas for mobilization to make Africa a middle-income continent by 2063. This is a sad moment because African elites and political leaders are not post-colonialism visionary towards African development. Flowing from my observation, Africa may not witness sustainable growth and advancement if the elites and political leaders continue to eradicate Africa's heritage and culture. As a historian of pre-colonial Africa, I have often wondered if there is any valuable part of our history and heritage that could assist our current quest to develop. My mind grapples with complex questions of how such antiquarian products of historical inquiry could fit into this ever-changing and ambivalent world. For a while now, these complex questions and the guesses that accompany them have somehow forced me to rethink my craft as a historian of pre-colonial Africa. Is history in all its forms still relevant in our contemporary world? Perhaps what we produce remains a history drafted for the mere purpose of entertainment and information. I wonder if there's more value attached to it, such as the possibility of producing products that could yield revenues for African economies. What values could we likely get from the story we tell and write about past people's empires, heritage, and sites? Looking around, I see possibilities of making valuable content from these stories and fitting them into movies, novels, animations for kids, for the consumption of the global audience via social media networks. Ladies and gentlemen, we both know it is more complex than this. African countries continue to grapple with a lot of deficits. Worthy of mention are technological and economic deficits that hinder key actors from transforming and fine-tuning historical and heritage knowledge into finished and consumable content. We run at a disadvantage when in most instances we struggle to acquire and harness the much desired funding and digital resources for this Ukrainian tax. Sustainable Development Goals and African Union Agenda 2063, possession and clarification. African Union, an anatomy of a dilemma. The initial euphoria that heralded the transformation of OAU to African Union is waning considerably in the face of harsh reality. The flamboyant oratory of Pan-Africanism and attendant Black Star sloganing have all fizzled away in the face of neglecting the usefulness of Africa's cultural heritage and the biting economic adversity. I think I am in the right position to assess the current move by African countries to achieving Goal 5 of the African Union Agenda in 2063, which is using heritage and culture to make Africa a middle-income economy. I have said this because of my rural lifestyle. As someone that lives and works in a rural community on the margins of Western Nigeria, I see firsthand a new version of the issue. The rural is far from the heart of government as it disregards its history, present, and future in its territory, in its entirety. In most cases, the government and its cognate groupings only visit when there is something quite significant to gain from the international community, like World Bank, UNESCO, World Health Organization, and others. The infrastructure in these places can at best be described as relics or debris material fit only for the glance of its people. So, whenever I hear or read visions that address the fate and plight of people in rural communities, that is my people, I am usually pessimistic concerning the intentions of major stakeholders. For me, African Agenda 2063, like the Sustainable Development Goals, remain a mere policy statement, taken in substance until we start taking critically and quite holistically at the multifaceted forces that hinder us from maximizing our natural resources. I believe the same forces that have since monopolized our cobalt, gold, crude oil, and cocoa, among others, are the same forces that control heritage sites, historical knowledge production, wildlife, and artifacts. They are the same forces that hinder the government from acting quite deliberately in improving the most vital sectors in our politics. I believe that they are monolithic Western-controlled networks that have interacted with our heritage and histories since the 5th century with motives that remain unclear to us all. From the 15th to the 19th centuries, we noticed that European empires pursued ambivalent vision. On one hand, they sought consciously to replace our African cultures and modernities with European ideas. In this process, they undermine other modernities, term them as a quad, inferior, pagan, and barbaric. On the other hand, the empire pursued a conscious quest to harness the wealth and knowledge of Africa. Medicines, language, religion, and indigenous knowledge systems were valuable commodities in imperial empires. They were used as drugs for the acclimatization or survival of the European race in the tropical world. Some were used to authenticate European scientific epistemes. For instance, a number of African herbs like Indian, American, Chinese herbs were heavily collected in the 19th century by agents of botanical stations and transmitted for pharmaceutical uses. Series of anthropological studies on African languages and religions were commissioned in the 19th and 20th centuries. They later turned out to be of efficacious value in European empires as means to comprehend the entire being of colonial subjects. This way, they could facilitate complete colonialism of the mind and body of Africans. With regards to history, colonial district officers were commissioned historians that collected, adulterated, and reconstructed the history of colonized societies. This way, they could transmit alternative reality of everyday lives and what they represent in the world. History was an important tool in the hands of the colonizer. One of the reasons why this ambivalence is important to my address today is that it suggests that there were and continues to be conscious effort by the Western world to destroy and sustain, at the same time, African culture and heritage. Perhaps this could suggest a caveat in our quest to achieving some of our biggest goals. It begs the questions, are we not invariably acting the script of the colonizer as we did in the past whenever we articulate some of these monumental agendas? It informs the need for us to rediscover what we actually want to do with our rich heritage and cultures. When agendas are set by bodies and institutions outside the continent, they come with an enormous body. The problem of implementing ideas shaped from outside into a very difficult setting. We might eventually end up complicating our present situation if we do not look inward and address how such agendas could assist us to scale monumental hurdles posed by colonialism and neoliberalism. I wonder if, for instance, we can maximize potentials inherent in our heritage, culture, and history if we remain underdeveloped and continue to depend almost willingly on subsidies from large capitalist economies. Also, I bring to questioning the possibility of investing in didactic crowd projects when we still find it entirely difficult to involve governmental systems that address our peculiar realities on the continent. With the recent rise in military coups, and also the spike in political crisis across the length and breadth of the continent, I wonder if this project could be initiated and sustained anytime soon. Also, how do we negotiate a reasonable reward from heritage and school side for Black South Africans when the land question is still hanging and remain unsettled in contemporary South Africa? Experimentation of African culture for sustainable development goals. As African and Africanist scholars, we must expand the scope of our discussion to accommodate other complexity in our quest to regionalize the states and fate of African heritage in the contemporary global order. I will not be surprised if some of us recommend during these conferences the need for African states to decolonize the heritage sector in such a way that it grows beyond benchmarks and context set by European modernity. Is it possible at some point for us to intervene in the intriguing depths of heritage restitution, especially on the suitability of European models of heritage preservation in the sustenance of returned artifacts? Is it also likely we align with radical notions of restitutions that sharply depart from the model of European museums, which argues that restitution is not only the returning of objects? For some of us here, cultural restitution is only complete when the museum is decolonized and restored to its African form. When institutions, environments, and forms of knowledge at the heart of participative ecosystem are restituted to returned objects. The challenge for most of us is to locate these institutions, environments, and knowledge in our histories. Perhaps we might have to question at some point the methodologies adopted to revive this vital information. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, it is important I provide some insight into some of these notorious pursuits. In my research trajectory as a scholar, I have studied the cultural significance of African museums on the preservation of objects. I believe an African museum is far from a place where artifacts are kept. Instead, these are places of interaction where objects are in continuation relationship with the larger society. An example is the Eagle Grove in Okagbe, a town situated in the northeastern part of Yoruba land in Nigeria. The grove houses a number of sculptures that are very appealing to tourists. These woodworks are of varied designs and artistry, displaying the complex imaginations of the professionals and society that produce them. When I encountered the groups for the first time in 2018, I was made to understand that the items serve purposes much deeper than those seen by the visitors. It was an embodiment of the group signifying its entire existence to both the society and the ancestors that framed them. For me, this is an ideal museum as its symbolism is beyond those prescribed by Western modernity. Towards my closing, it is helpful to make a clear position on the way forward. This position takes me to another very extreme argument of mine that believes true justice will rarely be done, even when artifacts are repatriated to their places of origin. This is because at the end of the day, most of these items will be returned to new sites, serving purposes totally different from those they were originally constructed to serve. Besides, these items will be returned to institutions that know little about their cultural significance. In clearer terms, I believe justice will only be served to an extent after Benin bronze works, for instance, are returned to the original site where they were looted and not to the Edo state government. or the federal government of Nigeria. I might move on to suggest the need for a cultural ceremony to the views of all where the British government will appease the Benin people and their deities for forgiveness. While this might not reinstate these items to their original states and significance, I strongly believe it could promote African arts and heritage sites beyond what they represent today. The sustenance of Africa's arts and crafts is to be directed with incentive public policies in tourist sector for Africa to be in a rightful place on the global engine room in tourism. Giving attention to the tourist sector will also boost the African economy, and its contribution to Africa's development shall restore a lost primacy among the community of nations. At this critical moment of economic development in Africa, there is need for African states to keep abreast with good investments that heritage can offer and be applied to promoting public trust for good governance. Now, more than ever, we need good administration to respond effectively to problems confronting sustainable development in African countries by developing value platforms for revenue collection to foster economic growth and ensuring prosperity for Africans in cultural preservation. Ladies and gentlemen, in my conclusion, it is important to appreciate you all, ladies and gentlemen. I do sincerely hope that you have listened carefully, as I trust that the sessions will enrich and equip us with useful information we can adopt to cherish the contributions of heritage and culture to achieving Africa's sustainable development and growth. When we go back to our respective countries and institutions, I wish everyone a very productive conference, and I look forward over the course of this conference to hearing you nurture creativity through experimentation to promote cultural exchange and understanding the sustainable development. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for that insightful talk. I think you continued from where Professor Abu had left yesterday, and talking about ourselves, trying to colonize ourselves, not to depend on other people to colonize. So, as I want to welcome Professor Ware to come and give a small recap of what we got from what we said, then we can move to the
I have managed to pick a few areas that Professor Olusanya Baboyede explained in terms of linking heritage and Africa's development. He appreciated the theme that links culture and development, especially for the development of African continent. And he emphasized that heritage and culture are actually key in Africa's development, and especially in the realization of Goal 5, the SDGs. He linked the Sustainable Development Goals, and especially the importance of Sustainable Development Goals, to Vision 2063. Vision 2063 of the African Union. That's the vision that provides Africa with a roadmap as to where we are heading in terms of globalization and the development of the continent. He laments the role of African elites and intellectuals, and especially in the marginalization of the continent to take part in the sustainable development. Without technological deficits, the other deficits are not yet because of the network, but he pointed out the issue of technological deficit that has actually marginalized the continent to the extent that we are receivers instead of creators of value. Therefore, the African Union needs to assume goal 5 to turn the continent into a middle income economy from where we are at the moment. Or else, at the end of 2063 remains a policy statement unless it impacts on the local economic growth, especially on its risk of Africa's resources. He also lamented the paradox of development of Africa, especially on the displacement of tradition. That colonization displaced African tradition, and emphasizing on European civilization as the modus operandi for the development of the globe. And most African countries have actually adopted the European cultures to the detriment of development of African tradition. He laments that European civilization reconstructed the history of colonial societies. And they did it occasionally, deliberately, there was concerted effort to destroy African culture. And therefore, the paradox for now is that we are in a situation where decision-making and implementation in Africa's development is based on ideas from the European countries. Therefore, we need to invest in projects that promote African culture and heritage. He pointed out the problems that are occurring in Benin and the need to establish an African museum to house those precious objects and to enhance the repatriation of valuable heritage objects that are housed in the European museums. Benin and others, you see them, including one of the Namibian lady was being used as an epitome of an African. Big behind things. Yeah, so she's Namibian from South Africa. Yeah. So some of those things are still happening. And the heritage is that in the way forward, he says truth and justice will only be done after the through the process of restitution and repatriation of all those projects. Because the issues that are happening in the Benin city of Benin state in Nigeria, yeah, that's where he pointed out quite a number of issues happening out there because of the influence of European intervention into African culture. We need to preserve the cultural sites of the people of Benin, and for purposes of Africa's development, we need to involve the private sector, because that's one way that we are going to have economic growth that is anchored on African culture. Thank you.
Thank you both for. Are you online?
Hello? Hello?
questions from
Hello?
we want to take some few questions. Is there the question before?
Good morning, Professor Osano. You're advocating for partnerships in order to forge way forward in terms of preserving our heritage and our cultures. Now, my question is, in the contemporary society, most scholars are advocating for South-South partnerships instead of North-South partnerships. But we all understand that South-South partnerships may not be possible to do with the money, facilitation, capitation, and all that. So we have to rely on the North in order for them to fund our projects and everything. So what will be the way forward in that issue?
One more crop and then you can hear anybody else.
Hello?
What I will ask from is, you say rightly that when there's restitution of artifacts, often what happens, they are taken to the national government, which then takes to the national museums for storage and maybe exhibition. But you say that's not the right model. They should go to the place of origin. But more often than not, you find the argument is that the place of origin do not have, which is ironical, do not have the capacity to take care of those artifacts. And here, these are the people who made those artifacts. So how do you go about that issue? You know, like Belgian marbles, Britain has refused to take them back to Greece because the Greek cannot ostensibly take good care of those marbles. So how can we go around that issue?
Hello? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello? Your questions are not clear. Hello? Your questions are not clear. Hello? Your questions are not clear.
Okay.
It's raining here.
I'm saying that depending on, because of the money problem, most third world countries, they use that word, do not have enough resources to take care of the cooperation we are talking about. So how can we forge South-South cooperation and yet both South and global South countries don't have enough resources? Can you get that question?
Are you asking how the South could do collections of artifacts?
You encourage South-South cooperation when we know that most global South countries do not have enough resources to operationalize that cooperation.
It's raining here. I can't hear your question very well, but I can grab for the question. I think you're talking about how we can do collections.
Check your chat, Prof.
Okay. Have you checked mine?
Can you see the chat? The question on the chat?
Okay, my chat. Okay. Okay, how can we advance? How can we help those who are speaking from? How can we advance faith partnership?
Prof, we have dropped a question for you on chat. Just to come up again quickly, the question says, how can we advance faith partnerships? Sorry about that. It's how can we advance South partnerships? The faith in the chat is a mistype. It's South partnership. If you've gotten me, you can start speaking in 5 seconds. Okay, we can see if you need to add something on this, I will read the answer you have typed. To add an answer to it, you can be free the moment I finish speaking. The answer Professor has given is, we can attain that first. Be conscious of our histories and be ready to be advertised to the world. Secondly, we should not be too westernized. He's still typing the last part of the question.
I'm typing it. On Zoom. Okay.